It's Thursday, 16th of September 2021. In this evening's show, we are fusing together a Huddersfield review and Boro preview as we go over Tuesday night's massacre against the Terriers. And we also look forward to Atonement at Middlesbrough this Saturday. I'm John Aspinall. This is the Seaside's podcast, Thursday night preview show, Huddersfield review, Boro preview.
It's already changed the world. A small town from the north of England with a great tradition.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the preview show on a Thursday night, 8 p.m. Welcome to everyone in the chat. Welcome, Mervyn. Welcome, Yarn Beast 2810. That's a very unusual handle. Give us the backstory, Yarn Beast. Good evening to everybody on the pod, and welcome, Mitch. Welcome, Connor. We're a man down. We're waiting for our accredited friend to turn up. I believe there's a fire drill or something, or some lame excuse, Connor, isn't it? Can't be. What's the word? Trusted? No.
I think
relied upon.
Well, I can't really blame him for not wanting to revisit the Huddersfield match. I'd invent any excuse to get out of that as well. It's just Sean's more creative than I am.
Maybe he's not a masochist like us.
Oh.
Well, I'm quite alarmed because I normally rely on Sean to say things and then just about 3 comments later say something similar because it highlights I don't actually know anything about football, and particularly on a preview show I really don't know anything at all about Middlesbrough, so I'm selling it well, aren't I?
Well, as we said in the green room, Mitch, I think you're in good company in thinking about Bernie Slaven and Tony Mowbray.
Yeah,
and,
I'm looking forward to going to Ayresome Park. Nice to see
I was
those.
just thinking, in my intro, I wrote my little intro script, I put looking forward to Atonement at Middlesbrough this Saturday. I was in my head, I was writing, looking forward to Atonement at Ayresome Park this Saturday. But obviously that's now rubble and probably a supermarket or something.
I think it's a housing estate. I think.
Is it really? How depressing.
Well, that's even worse.
Wilf Mannion Way and all that.
Ugh. So what is Middlesbrough Stadium called now? Connor, over to you.
The Selnet Riverside. I know this one because I looked it on Google Maps for the drive. So
yeah, it's the Riverside Stadium.
What names has it had? I'm sure that's been sponsored as well.
It's the Riverside, but then it's prefixed by Selnet, or at least it is in Google Maps.
That was ages ago, though, wasn't it? Selnet.
Is it?
BT Selnet.
Well, possibly, but it still is on Google Maps anyway. Or I think it is.
It used to be the Captain James Cook Stadium, which is much better, and I'm really disappointed they changed it.
When was it? Did he change that? That was brilliant.
He wound us up, or is that?
No, it used to be called the Captain James Cook Stadium.
How long ago?
Changed in 2019. It was renamed for a single game against Norwich City as they celebrate all that's great about the Tees Valley.
That, listeners, stroke viewers, that is why you tune in to the Seasiders podcast. For nuggets of gold like that. Hipster podcast gold. You don't get that on the official Blackpool preview show. Right, let's get going then. Our friend hasn't joined us, so we were going to do a pod straight after the Huddersfield game, but we all got back too late. And I think it would have been quite good to do it being a bit raw and angry afterwards. But Mitch, was it that bad upon reflection?
Yes and no. It wasn't good. I can't claim that was good, and I can't put a really positive spin on it and sort of say, we got beaten 3-0, and there were periods where we looked weak and naive, and there were mistakes were made. But having said that, we had the better of the first half, and we did, and I've thought about this objectively, we did have the better of the first half, we had the better chances, and we played the better football. And I think we got, although mistakes were made, I think it was a combination of mistakes and bad luck, because I think some of the mistakes that were made were actually quite unlucky to get punished. They were mistakes that 8 times out of 10, the ball doesn't run that way, or it just goes out of play, or, and it seemed a combination of quite a few of those mistakes. And it sounds like I'm kind of going, well, we were unlucky 3 times, but there was definitely an element of bad luck. And I don't think it was a 3-0 defeat. I think maybe it was a 2-0 defeat or a 2-1 defeat or even a 1-0 defeat, but I didn't feel like it was a 3-0 defeat. So it was bad, but I didn't feel it was as bad as it maybe initially felt after the game, if that made sense.
Yeah, so it makes total
Completely.
sense. What's your kind of sort of summary of your thoughts, Connor?
I'd completely agree with that. I felt we probably deserved to lose, but I think we only really deserved to lose by 1 goal. I think about their first goal, which was a long-range corker from outside the box from Josh Corona, who is just a player who can do that. There's not much you can do about that. The second goal, in terms of the header, he's relatively free, but it's not like one of the complete clangers of a set piece we've conceded so far this season where somebody's just completely unmarked. He gets up clean, but there are people around him. Maybe Maxwell could have been a bit braver, but, again, didn't feel like there's anything egregious there. And it's just the third goal where, Marv's trying to really play it out and is unlucky in terms of how he tries to clear the ball, that it then falls to another Huddersfield player completely unmarked for some reason, right next to the 6-yard box. So again, I felt like maybe one of those I'd be like, yeah, is deserved, but all 3 of them, it's just a bad day at the office. We deserve to lose, but not by 3.
Being a grassroots coach, the young lad would have been slated for doing what Akpateta did. You get told, just put it out, just get it out of play, just claim it, get it out of play.
I think the other thing that was apparent to me later when I'd calmed down was that actually they basically had those 3 chances. The only other time I could remember them really threatening the goal was that one just before half time that was, I think, deflected wide. And that was it. I couldn't really remember them having, apart from that spell, any long, consistent spells of pressure, particularly dominating the game. And you get a really bad impression when a team goes 3-0 up after an hour or whatever it was, and the game's dead. You sort of read it like they've been hammering us but they haven't really. And I'm not trying to sort of put a positive spin on it because it wasn't great, but it wasn't disastrous, even though the scoreline was.
Okay, let's rewind to the starting 11. Let's get up on screen now. Raised a few eyebrows, didn't it, Connor? Did for me anyway.
Yeah,
Keshi
but
not being included being the main one.
I can understand why it raised eyebrows, but it also makes a lot of sense. It is, apart from Stewart for Dougal and TJJ playing on the left, replacing Keshi to make room for Lavery, I don't think anybody would argue against Shane Lavery being included. Apart from those 2 changes, it's pretty much unchanged from Fulham, which we all thought was a fantastic performance that we should absolutely be replicating, etc. So it's a minor variation on the squad we took against Fulham. And when you think about how Keshi and TJJ play, they're quite similar. Neither of them are lateral left wingers. Keshi likes to cut inside and kind of more play in that 10 spot that's his natural position. And TJJ, we know, isn't, a target man striker. He's somebody who likes to drop deep, kind of be a 9.5, to use a hipster phrase, and kind of play in that space between the lines like an attacking midfielder does. So I kind of understand why he'd do that, because Keshi's played a lot of games, probably needs a bit of a break. CJ Hamilton's injured, so that's somebody else who, you're not going to be able to kind of put on the pitch to give Keshi some respite. why not put TJJ there, given there are similarities in the way they like to play? So overall, it did. While it looked very, very odd to take out Keshi, who's been one of our star performers so far this season, I can understand why when you're thinking about the X's and O's of the situation, and you're trying to think about how you manage your resources in the squad, I can understand why he'd come to that decision.
I understand it, but I personally don't agree with dropping a player who's hit the peak of his form. And I think it's agreed that Keshi possibly had the best game he's ever played for us, Mitch. And I think football's a game of momentum. And Steve's asking a question there: should we have stuck with a winning team? I personally think it was a mistake to leave Keshi. I was very surprised.
Yeah,
when he did that. I don't think he should be playing lone players ahead of one of our own players that's just come back from a bad injury last season, wants game time, and he's played the best game he's ever played. So I thought it was a very strange decision.
Well, I thought, where's Keshi? And then I got distracted by Medine and sort of forgotten about it because I was like, why is Medine there? How's that worked? I thought he wasn't in the squad. And that confused me for a while, as why would you announce he's not in the squad? And then about 2 days later, put him in the squad. And I kind of got distracted from that. And I must admit, sort of, I think hindsight says
you can understand Stuart, can't you? You can understand
Stuart because Kev can't. And look, the more I see of Stuart, the more impressed I am of him. I was doing a bit of reading about him the other day, and I read something about he played in the Champions League or Europa League for Liverpool, and Liverpool fans were saying, "Oh, we should have given him more of a chance because he was actually really good the few times he saw him." And I think with Stuart, it's one of those. The more I see of him, the more he looks utter class. But he's here because he's fragile and he's going to have to be nursed through the seasons. And I think we can moan about that, but we've got a class player, and 3 games in a week would have been stupid to play him there. So I got that. And Doug's on form is a good player. That was fine. Keshi, well, I get what Connor's saying, but I get what you're saying. And I felt like he's been dynamite in the last few games. Why leave him out? But that said, I wasn't that bothered because I'm not as tactically adept as some people. And I looked at it and thought, well, there's attackers on that team. He's trying to win the game. I hate it when you go to a home game and it looks like you're trying to stifle the opposition. You're not having a go. And all right, he's left out Keshi, but he's put in John Jules, or he's put in Lavery and moved John Jules around. They're both very attack-minded players. It's a team that appeared on paper, to my naive eyes, to have a bit of aggression about it, to have a bit of intent about it, and I was happy enough with that we were going to go out and try and win the game. Obviously, it diverted slightly from the plan, but before the game, honestly, happy enough.
I thought he may have played Dujon Sterling as well at right back, Connor. I thought he might kind of just chop and change those two around, and we saw a very brief glimpse of him at the end of the game, and he looked like a player to me. I mean, it's hard to judge from 10 minutes, but bags of pace, rock solid, and he looks like a potential starter on Saturday.
Completely agree. And I really, really like Jordan Gabriel. I kind of think we all do. I think he had a really, really good game against Fulham. He kind of gets caught out defensively. He kind of gets caught out of position a couple of times, but he normally has the pace to recover, so it's not that big a deal. If Dujon turns out to be another Jordan Gabriel or better, I think there's going to be a real battle on that right-hand side for a starting spot, and it's going to be a complete treat for us fans, just because whichever one we play, we know they're going to be able to do some damage kind of roving up that right-hand side. I don't know if it was a tactical thing or if maybe just wasn't as confident coming forward because he was always having to deal with a quite pacey attacker on his side. But Gabriel didn't seem to get as far forward as he did against Fulham. He didn't seem to kind of get on the overlap and support Josh Bowler as much this game. And I don't know if that was an instruction or because he was trying to be mindful of the really pacey forward he was competing against. But I think it often led to Josh Bowler being quite isolated, and maybe Dujon Sterling would have done that better. Maybe he wouldn't have done, but it's something to keep an eye on for future games.
Mitch, look at this comment from Steve watching. Yates and Lavery just doesn't work together, in my opinion. Not so far, anyway. Look like a fair comment to me. And the two, are they kind of two similar players? Because when Medine comes on with that, it's the classic big man, little man up front, isn't it? He looked like he made a world of difference to the team in that formation, playing that way, which was lumping some balls forward, and it just kept coming back and back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if it's my age or our age, but that big man, little man just seems right. And it's the same. It works the other way. It seems weird when you put two target men up. I was trying to rack my brains the other day because we had Armand and Medine at the same time. And I can't remember if they were both fit and if they both played together. But it just looks weird when you've got two beam poles up front. And it looks weird when you've got two smaller players up front. And they're not identical players. They have differences, but they both essentially want to do the same thing. They both want to lead the press. They both like sniffing around. Jerry's probably a bit more comfortable with he is more comfortable with his ball at the feet on the edge of the box and sort of little tricks and layoffs and stuff. And Lavery's a bit faster and he likes kind of running through and terrorizing with his pace. But they're both tricky small players who like pressing very intently, and you just can't help but feel that as much as we want them to play well together, and as much as kind of on paper they've both got the skills and the intelligence to do different jobs, that you can't help in the pressure of a football match kind of reverting to your instinct. And I feel like almost like they both got the same essential instinct. And what I thought was not just did Yates and Lavery not just look quite right, I felt like one of the best things about the way we play against Fulham was the fluidity of the front line. It was really nice to watch. And I just felt like it just didn't feel like that at all in this game. And at first I thought it was kind of, it was different numbers, and then I kind of looked and said, well, it's more or less the same layout, just with different people. And I feel like I agree basically with Steve entirely that individually I love them both. I think there's some questions about Jerry and his state of mind perhaps a little bit, or his confidence a little bit, but I love them both. But you know, they say don't marry someone who's too similar to you, don't they? And it feels the same with strikers.
It's a great analogy.
I'd completely agree with that. I think because they were so similar, it looked to me that Jerry was kind of having to build a slightly different role for himself on the fly. Like if you look at where Jerry's average position was during this match, he's kind of like level with Luke Garber at left back, kind of almost playing as like a left-sided centre midfielder, which is just not where you want your number 9 to be. He's kind of dropping so deep to try and get on the ball and then turning around to try and do something with it. And that's just not his skill set. And it's unfair to expect him to do that. And I don't know. I suspect it's because he's having to play with somebody so similar to him, and he's trying to accommodate and make space for them both. But it just didn't work, you know. And it kind of just led to us being quite stifled on the left-hand side, of then Josh Bowler being quite isolated on the right-hand side, and nothing ever meshing.
I think last season we talked about this 4-4-2, didn't we? And Medine had to be in it, and it had to be Medine, it had to be Yates for us to play a 4-4-2. And, you know, let's just jump ahead very quickly to the Middlesbrough game. We'll come on slightly later in the pod, but would you start, if you're doing a 4-4-2, if he's playing 4-4-2, do you start Medine? And who with? Out to the room as well, out to Facebook, out to YouTube. Just let us know in the comments. Mitch, over to you.
If Medini's fit, yes, I would. I absolutely would, because I think that I think Lavery would love playing off him, and I think Jerry is in a similar frame of mind than he was at the beginning of the season last year, where he looks like his mate would help him out. You know, he came alive with Medine when we finally got around to playing them together, and I think it would do him the world of good. I'm not so fussed which one you play, to be honest. I think, despite the fact Jerry hasn't scored, I still think he brings a lot to the team, and I actually think he's a better footballer than Lavery in a sort of a pure technical way. But I love Lavery's energy and effort. I'd toss a coin on it. I don't care, but I don't want to see two 6'0", 5'11" strikers running into the defend. They were just being levered away by the defenders or running into them, and they weren't particularly big. Now, I don't know a lot about Middlesbrough, but it's a Warnock team, so we're not going to push them over. We're not that's not going to be that easy. It's going to be a sort of similar backline to Huddersfield in the sense they were tough, they were well built, they were strong, they were well drilled. And I'd love to either see one up front with Keshi in the hole, pulling strings and doing a bit of magic, or Big Gaz using his undoubted Now's experience attributes, holding it up, drawing people in, not shadowing the ball, protecting the ball, letting players get round, letting Bowler find spaces and stuff. One of the two, not both. But I don't think Medina's going to be ready.
He could play 60 minutes.
Maybe, yeah.
But what you say, though, playing Connor, I think what Mitch has just said then, Yates or Lavery up top on their own with Keshi in the hole, that's a decent option as well, isn't it?
I think so. I think that's the great thing about this squad is there's lots of flexibility. And that's why I think if we do end up in a situation where we're playing a 4-4-2 and Gary Medine is the key player who makes that 4-4-2 work at 30-odd years of age and very injury-prone, then we have completely failed at squad building. Like, Gary Medine, at his age and at his kind of fragility at the moment, cannot be your key player.
Hang on a minute, Connor. I'll just stop you there mid-flow. 30 is not old.
It is when you're a professional footballer.
It makes me and Mitch feel absolutely ancient when we hear things like that. So can you just cut that out? Yeah,
I will cut that out. I'll be respectful to those of a certain.
He's a very
vintage.
Youthful man at the peak of his powers.
He's got nothing on Stanley Matthews. He's a mere tiddler. And think about how good he was. What was he? 38 when we signed him, something like that. So basically, I'm saying Medine is the next Stanley Matthews. He's still going to be playing at 50, and we're going to win the FA Cup in 2031, and he's going to have a monumental final that will be remembered forever.
I look forward to the Gary Medine Ballon d'Or.
Yes, yeah, well, that's definitely happening.
And the other thing about Medine is because he may not be. While he's young, he may not be as young as other players on the squad. That means he may be a little bit less mobile to get around. And that doesn't gel with the rest of how our front four operate, I think Keshi is leading the side, apart from Ryan Wintle, in tackles per 90 at the moment. Yates and Lavery work incredibly hard off the ball. I think Lavery got the most tackles in the Millwall game, despite playing striker. The only player who seems like his off-the-ball effort could be doubted is Josh Bowler, who does make up for it in the way he is able to take people on and make stuff happen. I worry that if you were to have Gary Medine and Josh Bowler in the same side, you would just have like a really strong left-handed press with Keshi and Yates or Lavery, and they'd go to the right-hand side with Medine and Bowler and just like have loads of space and time on the ball and make stuff happening. And I think our defensive setup and the way we're coached defensively, I think there would be a real impact on that if Medine were to come in to this current 4-4-2, which would be a concern for me.
I'd say yes. I get what you're saying, but what I would also say is it feels like we have to work quite hard to get up the pitch. So I watch Huddersfield, and they seem to go up the pitch fairly easily at times without being that good. And I felt like that was partly down to their physical presence. And I think one of the things that's inescapable about our side is outside of a few players, we're quite lithe. were sort of dancer type players rather than boxer type players. And Medine is a boxer, full stop. And I think in some ways, yes, he's definitely not as mobile. He doesn't press as hard. And it is, it is old-fashioned, unfashionable football in the sense that knock it at a big man, but it takes pressure off. And what he is undoubtedly outstanding at, and I would still say he's as good as almost any player I've ever seen in Tangerine at this, is shielding the ball, taking it, shielding it, holding it. And we just don't do that. We don't have that player who takes and shields and holds it. We have players that run with it. We have players that knock it about, but we don't have anybody who holds the play whilst the rest get round. And I think that is a benefit, whilst it's also a risk if it undoes the press, if that makes sense. And I think it's a very 2021 thing where the press comes before everything. And actually what we've not got is we don't have anybody to head the ball. And there were times on Tuesday, where it was like, we're working, we're looking for it, and we were just spending ages because that threaded pass wasn't on. And then we'd boot it over the top, and we'd do that anyway, but there was no way we were going to win it. So,
and it comes back, and the ball comes back.
Yeah. Exactly, the ball comes back, and the Medine, it'll stick more. But equally, I totally get what you're saying. It's sides of a square. It's balance.
For me, you always have to have the option in it. You don't have to, but it's always good to have that option in the team, to have the ball and get it to stick up top, because we're not going to be playing triangles through the midfield in every game. We've seen it loads of times. That Cardiff game, prime example. Every time we went long, come back straight at you. You're back under pressure. So I think if Sean was on, he'd be kind of on your side, Connor, and it's like us of a certain vintage are waving the flag for Gary Medine, whereas you football purists are a bit more reserved about his inclusions.
I'm happy either way, but in Sean's absence, I'm gonna bully Connor some more with an opposite opinion.
Yeah,
but I think the other thing I really took from the Huddersfield game was I actually thought we started quite well, and I thought at times we were trying to play some quite good football, and they were really cynical. They tripped, they blocked, they pulled, and they did it deep. And they did it at a point where they weren't going to get punished for it. They were very, very good at that. And we didn't have an answer to it. I saw a couple of times John Jules was kind of like, what's going on? He looked like sort of a little kid playing with the bigger kids, getting knocked over and looking for his mum to come and tell him to stop it. And Medine is streetwise. He's got nous, and he is actually, as much as people sort of characterize Medine a certain way, up top, he's a clever footballer, and he's also Critchley spoken about several times about what he brings to the dressing room, like his character. And there's no way that if Medine had been on from the start, there's no way that we would have lost our conviction in how we play quite so quickly. I didn't feel like Critchley sent them out with a terrible plan and said, just knock it about a bit and then boot it over the top. I felt like what happened was we tried to play, we got frustrated, we couldn't play, and we resorted to, and we needed like an experienced player to just give some back to them, to go, no, we're not being pushed around like this. All right, you want to nip at us, I'm going to elbow you in the, to give it that kind of dirty edge to it, because we just didn't have that. And yes, Lavery's got that in him, but he's like a wasp, not a bull, and a wasp's irritating, but it's not going to really hurt you. And Medine's a bull.
I think there's a couple of points here that's really important. I think, first of all, when you talk about that ability to hold up play so other players can come and swarm and push forward, etc., that's really important, and that does help you attack. But it also helps the opposition defend, because it gives time for their defenders to rush back and get back into position, particularly if you've caught them on the break, etc. And that is not helpful when you consider all the other things that Blackpool attackers are good at. And I think Blackpool attackers at the moment are very, very good at taking people on 1v1 and winning those kind of direct battles. Josh Bowler is absolutely excellent at it. Every time Josh Bowler gets the ball 1v1 with the fullback, I'm like, he is getting into that box somehow, and he's going to cut that ball back and create something.
And then kick it out for a corner.
Yeah. And then Keshi is like, he's just electric when you can tell he's just beating his man. And he's going to, push the ball up the pitch kind of single-handedly next to the, until he gets next to the box. If you've got Medine kind of holding up play, etc., it gives more time for their defenders to get back. It gives them more time to get into structure.
Holding up play. That's. Do you mean holding the ball up?
I think he's holding the ball up, and he's also holding up play.
you said holding up play. You said holding up play.
Yeah, because he is. He's like an old man in traffic, holding it all up.
Well, look, Connor, I agree with everything you say about Josh Bowler's qualities, and I would assume that therefore means you're not dropping him this week. I think that's the. I'm not asked.
Where's Sean?
No, I know. I'm taking advantage of this, aren't I? I'm not coming on again. I'm scared.
I just can't wait until Gary Medine gets injured again, and we can't have this debate for another 6 months.
I'm not coming on again because the data and stats-based bullying that we're going to get is.
Who remembers the upturn in form last year?
Yeah, Burton
Who did
away.
it coincide with? Eh?
Oh, it seemed to be Burton away when we played Gary Medine and Jerry Yates together.
Oh,
that was the first time we actually managed to a convincing attacking force in any game.
And he was anonymous during our playoff push.
Well, he was injured. He came on 3 times for 10 minutes. He came on at Wembley in the last 20 minutes. He touched the ball once, and once it was a whisker over the bar. And he... honestly, also, what you get with Medine is the sheer joy of his total football in the corner when we're 1-0 up. When we're 1-0 up against Middlesbrough, he'll be flicking it up. He'll be doing Cruyff turns and everything, and that'll be beautiful. So, no, I'm genuinely not asked whether we play Keshi at 10 or Medine like a striking 10. I think you can debate that, and actually probably for all I'm saying, I feel like the right thing to do is play Keshi at 10 for all I'm saying that. But I think if you're playing 4-4-2, I think the argument is if Critch plays 4-4-2, I want to see Medine in that side. If Critch doesn't play 4-4-2, then, and actually I wouldn't play 4-4-2, I want to see Keshi behind Jerry or Lavery.
And I think we're in agreement there, aren't we?
Yeah, and after Sean and I made the tactical decision to drop Josh Bowler from our lineup against Fulham, he then had a corker. So I'm sure Gary Medine, with the mentality you've all praised, will take my slight jibes as fuel for what will be a fantastic man of the match performance against Boro that wins him the Ballon d'Or and gets us an automatic bye for the Champions League just because everyone is so impressed by him.
You used that reverse psychology tactic for Bowler as well, didn't you?
Absolutely. I'm not just X's and O's. My man management is also supreme.
All this was learned on the when you put in the long miles on Championship Manager. All those years and months spent honing your craft. Time well spent. Right, let's talk about Josh Bowler quickly before we move on. He's a bit of an enigma, isn't he? And it kind of, his performance against Huddersfield added fuel to your decision to drop him for the Fulham game. I think yours and Sean's.
Yeah, there were times. So I was sat by the away dugout. My family's tickets are right behind the away dugout, so you get to hear what the coaches are saying quite well. At one point during our play, some of the Huddersfield coaches just went, "Oh, it's like butter," because we were carving through them like a knife through butter, which was quite nice. But on to detraction. Neil Critchley, you heard him a couple of times literally just shout, "Josh, move," when Huddersfield had the ball. I think the implication being that just Josh Bowler was not pressing enough, was not doing what Neil Critchley wants him to do enough, which is always a concern. And I think probably doesn't help his standing. But on the other side, he is so good at taking people on 1v1 compared to anybody else we could play in that position. He is, he's a very, very fine player. If we're playing that system, we have to play him. He gets into the box consistently. He gets into dangerous positions consistently. He's just often, I think, his decision making or his final ball isn't very good. Against Fulham, a couple of times he could have played Yates 1v1 against the keeper, but under hits the pass or over hits the pass, and completely lets off the pressure. Here, he runs inside the box and kicks out for a corner or tries to be too fancy. It's just, I think, hopefully this stuff can be coached and worked on and practiced. But at the moment, he's just frustrating because he's got these amazing qualities that means he gets into dangerous positions so often, and then these kind of rough edges that just means he's never seemingly able to finish them off.
Mitch. Tim, if you recall on the last pod, made a very good point about Bowler, and that was there's a reason why he's not playing in the Premier League, and the lack of end product, as we discussed on the previous pod, is it. And that was there for all to see on Tuesday night, wasn't it?
Yes, but Tim also made another point, which I thought was valid, which was that he's a young lad and that he's capable of providing brilliance, and that we've got to get behind him and take the rough with the smooth. And I entirely subscribe to that. And he didn't have a great game. And I've actually got a theory that Critchley didn't intend him to be a starter. I was thinking about this the other day, that if you look at our recruitment, it really does look like we've recruited to play a back five. And presumably with a back five, we'd then have 3 in midfield or 4 in midfield and 1 up front or 2 up front, depending how many. And I think Bowler's been so electric that he's kind of has to play him. But if he plays him, then the recruitment for a back five doesn't make sense, because you can't play a back five with Bowler. It doesn't work. And I think it'll be interesting to see how many times he has a game like he does against Huddersfield before Critchley hooks him. And he's the other thing that I look at, and again, I'm old-fashioned, I'm not doing it for the sake of it, he's on the wrong foot all the time. He's on the right foot to cut inside and to shoot, which is what we keep saying, all he wants to do is run through and shoot, but we're playing him in an inverted way, which is basically, unless you're a really good two-footed player, then you're going to have to cut inside and shoot. And he looks to me sometimes like he's really struggling to get the ball out of his feet. He's running so quickly. He's running so fast. He's herring past players. And you can see him trying to untangle his feet virtually to get the ball across. And then by the time he gets the ball across, it's like a crappy toe poke with the wrong foot in the wrong direction. And I'd be intrigued to see what he looked like on his natural foot. If that makes sense. We slate his delivery, but he's played on the wrong side as an inverted winger, and he's so one-footed.
He is. Connor, just briefly, your thoughts on Josh Bowler's performance against Huddersfield?
I thought it was okay. I always find matches like this really hard to evaluate players, because when a team is playing so badly as a unit, it's really hard to say how good they are or not. I think Kenny Dougal really suffered from that this game. Like, everyone's compared him to Stewart in the Fulham game and been like, he looks really off the pace. And I think that's unfair. He made the most tackles in the team. It's just that the team was playing really, really badly compared to when Stewart was playing against Fulham, the team was playing really, really well. So, yeah, I think we've talked about the issues with Josh Bowler reasonably comprehensively. I don't want to put too much stock in this game, because it's really hard when the entire team is playing badly to say, this is your issue as a player. I think we just got to chalk it as move on, maybe keep an eye on it in future games. I would be interested, to Matt's point, to say, see what a back five looks like. In our next cup game, I'd really just like to see how we play in a back five.
It's not that I particularly want a back five. It's just I looked at the recruitment and thought, well, he's clear. Like, why has he got some of the players he's got? If you break it down, who we've got 2 wing backs, 2 left wing backs, 2 players who can play left centre back, which would like in a 3, 2 players who can play centre back properly, and Connolly, who doesn't really fit anywhere else but right centre back, ideally in a 3. And it just feels like, well, if we're planning a 4, why have we recruited players who are wing backs and having the number? It just feels weird. It doesn't. It just feels like that's the squad we've got, and it's almost like with Bowler playing really well might have thrown that a little bit, if that makes sense. You know, that plan A is on ice because plan B has worked quite well in terms of Bowler. That's my theory, and I agree. It would be interesting to see, but I think the problem is we haven't actually had the defense fit yet to do it.
Can I start a fight with somebody in the comments, John?
Virtually, yes.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I don't know. Nigel has said that Garber needs dropping because he can't defend and the free kicks could go anywhere. I think Luke Garber was absolutely our best player in this game. I think probably the only player that I think played really, really well. And I think he deserves to be called out for praise. And I'm going to take Nigel's comment as my vehicle to do that, as my little segue to do that. Because he made 3 tackles, which is one of the highest in the team. He made 3 interceptions, which was the highest in the team. He made 3 key passes, which means offensively he did something right as well, one of the highest in the team. And when you look at the touch map, he was always getting the ball and always pushing forward with it, etc. I can completely understand why you would have concerns about him defensively. You know, he does play a quite high line, as the graphic John's brought up show. But he's pretty dynamic and in terms of being a box-to-box midfielder, box-to-box kind of left back. I don't think he does that job, worse than anybody else we put in that spot. I think Garbutt's been one of our probably top 5-6 players so far in the season, and I think was definitely our best player for that game.
Mitch, just want to come in on Luke Garbutt before we move on to Boro?
Yeah, I mean, look, the stats tell the story. I can't say with my eyes I thought he was outstanding, but equally I didn't think he was terrible. I think I have a very simple way of telling if we're playing well. Is when we're coming towards me, is Garbutt close to me or far away? And if Garbutt's close to me, we're probably playing well because he's getting right down the pitch. If he's far away, and he seemed not as close as he was in the previous game, which is kind of how I thought he was really unlucky on the goal. I've seen him being called out for that tackle that he almost made after John Jules lost the ball. And I think that might be why he's taken some stick. I thought he's really unlucky because I was kind of right in line and he went in really hard and the ball just kind of popped up and rolled the wrong way. What he did do was take possibly the worst free kick I've ever seen after about 4 minutes, where he neither crossed or shot. It was like a new thing that had been invented by him, where I think what he was trying to do was catch the keeper out, and he just sort of stubbed his foot and toe bunged it, but not very hard, and he just ran out of play. It was weird. Considering
he's this like dead ball specialist, he has flat to deceive, hasn't he?
But our 2 best chances came from him putting it absolutely on the spot for Lavery to dart in. Those balls were beautiful. Those little short floated corners. Those balls were absolutely lovely. They were inch perfect for where Lavery wanted it, and Lavery moved a lot as well. It wasn't just put sort of a yard ahead of him. It was put for a player to move on to. Garbs, again, though, he would suit a back 5. He would be great in a back 5 because he'd have Viking or Husband backing up and letting him play that attacking thing. But again, play a back 5, we lose the wingers, and the wingers are pretty good. And that's the problem.
Right, that's the Huddersfield game done. 45 minutes already. This is more of a Middlesbrough preview, but we're ranting for 40 minutes.
Group therapy.
Yes, group therapy. So let's move on to Middlesbrough then. Let's take what we've just said about how we're going to line up against Middlesbrough, Connor. So How do you think Critchley is going to line up? Do you think we're going to go 5 at the back, given the fact that we've now got multiple options on the right side? So we've got Sterling. Have we got Connolly back? How many
Should
games is
be,
he
yeah,
out
he
for?
should be. I
Yeah.
think it was a 2-game at most.
2-gamer.
3-gamer, was it?
I think we'll go with a back 4 again. I think if we didn't go with I don't think Critchley's going to be swayed by 1-3-0 loss to Huddersfield. I think if we didn't go with a back 5 against Fulham, we're probably not going to go with a back 5 against Middlesbrough. I think the way Middlesbrough plays probably means we want more attackers high up the pitch. Middlesbrough are very, very slow in possession. They don't pass very quickly. They're quite languid. They kind of do that Arsenal thing where they just kind of pass the ball a lot, but do it quite slowly, and never really go anywhere with it. And so my hope is that if we do have Keshi playing, if we do have Yates playing, if we do have either TJJ or Lavery playing, I think they're one of the sides that where if we do press them and press them well, we could actually create a fair bit because they're not used to having to get rid of the ball quickly and move the ball around quickly. Like they've historically struggled when people have come at them, I think, so far this season. So again, I think you want kind of mobile attackers and lots of them kind of covering the width of the pitch and forcing them to make decisions, which I think you lose in a back 5. I think that's why he'll stick with his 4-4-2. I think equally, though, Middlesbrough are very, very aggressive in their front 4. Marv and Richard Keogh are going to have to regain some type of composure, or they're going to lose the ball constantly in dangerous areas, and Middlesbrough are always going to threaten that way. Because they're slow in possession, like their press is their main way of generating chances and, opportunities to score. And we just need to be really, really switched on to that. We need to get the ball out wide quickly, progress the ball up the pitch quickly before they can have a chance to kind of lock into us and force us into doing stuff like kicking it long, etc. And then hopefully, because they've been pressing us, we'll have space for Keshi, Josh Bowler to run one-on-one up their fullbacks who won't have any cover, and we can terrorise them on the break. So I kind of see the keys to success this game being pressing them hard and making sure we get the ball out quickly into space when they press us, because I think that's what they're going to do.
So assume we're going to do a 4-4-2, Connor. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if we don't go for a 4-4-2.
What would you make any personnel changes then based on the Huddersfield game?
I would probably bring Stewart back for Dougal, because I think he's a little bit better on the ball and will hopefully be able to deal with being pressed a little bit more than Kenny does. I'd certainly bring Keshi back in because he's just he was in the form of his life before he got dropped for the Huddersfield game. And I think if we can get Luke Garber fridding balls through to Keshi when Middlesbrough are squeezing us, Keshi will just have so much space to rampage. He'll have a great game. The only players I'm not sure about are if we still want Richard Keogh and Marv at centre back. I'm not sure if they're our most composed options. I'd probably want either.
Yeah, is Marv retaining his place then?
I don't know. I don't think he didn't have a good game against Huddersfield. I'd be tempted. I think Keogh definitely needs to play because he can do that thing where he pushes up into midfield and does a little bit of a dribble. And sometimes it goes horribly wrong, but most of the time it's quite useful. And I just wonder if you instead want Husband at centre-back as well, because he might give us an option to switch to a back 3 later. And he's also quite good in possession, quite good at moving the ball forward, because he has that kind of left-back training.
Are you putting it right back then, Mitch? I want to see the new lad. I want to see Sterling.
Would it
over Garber.
create havoc if I said I will not drop in Marv? I think that's madness. I think he's had one shaky 15 minutes and he's been an absolute Rolls Royce for the previous 2 games. And he's also a player who is, he's a very, I don't know what the word is, but he's like a momentum player in a sense that he never comes back into I suppose he did this time, but we've seen him come back into when he's been in and out of the team, he's looked a bit, and I think you're being very harsh dropping Marv. And who am I playing at right back? I'm going to play Gabriel if he's fit. I'm going to play Sterling if he's not, because I think Sterling's been overhyped. We saw him play for 10 minutes against an absolutely knackered side who did nothing to attack him in any way, shape or form. And he wandered up the pitch once and put a good cross in. And to be honest, Huddersfield had gone 10 minutes, but Huddersfield had finished. They'd gone home 10 minutes ago. They're 3-0 up. They'd gone home. I could have wandered up the pitch and put the cross in. I'm sure he's a good player, but we've just spent a lot of money on Gabriel. And he's our player. And you said earlier you don't like playing lone players ahead of our players. Gabriel's our player. We've got the new Mike. He's the new Mike Davis. He's our right back forever. So I'm playing Gabriel if he's fresh. If he's not, Sterling's getting his debut.
Well, that's it. Yeah, fresh. There's 2 games in a week.
So you can have Sterling, but I think you're absolutely mad dropping Marv, the pair of you.
Well,
stick Marv back in then, because like I said, I was unsure
I
about
want Marv in as well.
Yeah.
Let's do this democratically. So I'm saying Marv ahead of Keogh personally.
I am too, and I think I think Keogh has played pretty well the last couple of games, but he's 36 years old. If Medine's too old to play, Connor, then Keogh is too old to be in the flipping ground by those rules. Keogh is 36 years old. At some point, he is going to get fatigued at some point, and I think Middlesbrough better than me. I might be naive, but I would always set up my best team, and then I'm Kevin Keegan. I just pick the team I want to pick and sod them. So I'd put Marvin, and I'd probably, if he was fit and ready, I'd put Viking next to him. But I'm happy with Hubby.
Connor, then right back. You've got the casting vote. Are we going Garber or Sterling at right back?
I would go with Sterling because I think Gabriel's probably a bit too. I would say Gabriel. He plays a very attacking role in our side. He gets up and down the pitch a lot. That takes a lot out of a player. And I think Sterling at right back, just to give Gabriel a bit of a rest, makes sense. And to come back on the point around we don't like playing lone players, I can completely understand why, from a player development point of view, you don't want to develop other people's players and you want to develop your own. But the loan market is so important for championship clubs in terms of getting those high quality loan signings from the Premier League. It's such an important part of competing year in, year out, that having a reputation for being a side that plays loan players and develops them, that's invaluable.
They're not ours. They go home. Gabriel, he's one of us. No, that's the reality. And I think you're absolutely right. Gabriel was dead on his feet on Tuesday.
Yeah.
He was out.
But he was still.
So we're happy with Sterling. We're happy with Marv.
Yeah. But
who's the other centre half?
Despite Gabriel being dead on his feet, he was still the last player out, applauding all the fans, last one to go into the changing room, etc. So absolutely fair credit to him.
That's why I'm not dropping him, because I'm a sentimental soul. If Viking's fit, I think Viking's a better left-sided centre-back than Husband. Husband, I love him to bits, and I'm never selling him ever. He's staying till he's about 38 with his top knot, but Viking is a better player than him if he's ready and fit. So I'd pick him if he's ready to go.
Grezon can play those long diagonal balls that
And
will be important to exploit the space left behind that Middlesbrough will leave in their press.
Let's not forget the partnership from last season that served us so well. It was Viking and Marv, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. It was. So that's
that, like I think, real world beaters with them inside, right? That's the pen sorted out. So I think we're all in agreement with Stuart, aren't we? Has to come back in.
Yes, I thought Connor made a brilliant point before about downgrading players on the team performance. And I thought, really, the player we really did miss, never mind how anybody else played, the player we really dismissed was Kev Stewart, because he's calm. He's just like he's like the little calmness in the heart of the storm. He just makes that bit of space. He uses his body so cleverly. He gets in the right space. He's playing for me. And I wish he could play every single week.
Who
He's an
we putting him in?
8.5.
Who's going to be his centre midfield partner then?
Well, it's Wintle or Dukes, isn't it? One of the two. There isn't anyone else.
Connor, come on, give us your thoughts here.
I would say Wintle, just because Dougal has looked a little bit off the pace this season. He's going to get plenty of minutes to play into form. We only have 3 central midfielders. The minutes are going to come to Dougal. He's going to find his way back into form. But I think when we're still trying to I'm still in the mindset of I want to keep the momentum after, the Fulham win. I want to try and get back on that feel good as quickly as possible. With Derby getting the points deduction, I want to put as much ground between us and them as possible. So I just put Wintle in there, knowing that Dougal will have the chance eventually to play himself into form. I just don't think this is the game to give him that yet.
Agreed. Mitch?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to play Wintle. I am. I think he didn't do much wrong in the last game, and he played really well against Fulham. So I think he keeps the shirt.
Are we putting Keshi back in on the left? I don't want him on the left.
I don't want to.
I don't want to drop him either.
And I don't want to play 4-4-2 personally. I want to play one up front and Keshi in the hole. That's what I want to do. And then there's a comment about should we try Bowler on the left? I don't know. Can we play Bowler on the left? Who can play on the right? Is that possible? I don't know. So I'd like to start with who could play on the right if Bowler didn't.
One really interesting thing about how we play is that Bowler comes to the left quite a bit anyway. So in the cup game against Boro, he had a chance where he came across to the left and had a really good shot that tested. I think just went over. We saw it in the
wingers. Did I see this right? Did we switch?
We
did
at
one point.
We did. We had Bowler on the left, TJJ on the right.
We did.
There was sometimes when TJJ came over to the right to support Bowler. In our first game against Bristol City, the goal comes from Bowler kind of coming in into the left to lose his man before playing the assist to Lavery. So I don't know. I think there's a natural part of Bowler's game anyway, which means he does occasionally drag across to the left.
The gravity player.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose the question is then if I play Keshi in the 10, who plays wide then? Because it's still the same question. Have we got enough wide players who are fit, ready to go to play Keshi at 10 and play 4-5-1 or 4-3-2, whatever variation you want to work it out to play that. Whether Bowler's on the right or the left, you still got to get another wide player in if you put Keshi at 10, don't you? If Keshi isn't wide, who is?
Garber, play husband at left back.
I quite like the idea of that.
I don't think it has any pace though.
Yeah, but
do you need that much pace when you're whipping balls in for Medine to head in?
It's a good job you're screen sharing and my picture is very little, otherwise you'd have seen me visibly twitch there.
He's going to come off and go, I've been doing this podcast with these old men. They just wanted people to head it all the time. Don't they realise that heading went out of fashion in 2008?
It's called football.
So what are we doing then?
Well, if we sign Andy Carroll, you guys are going to have a field day.
I love Andy Carroll.
I love Andy Carroll.
Yeah.
I was serious when I saw his name. When I saw his name on the free agents list, I thought I'd love to sign Andy Carroll.
Yeah.
Love it.
Andy Carroll diving header with his thing of beauty.
He'd that goal for England.
Oh yeah.
Oh, he's
absolutely.
Neck,
I was watching the Euros final going, I wish we had Andy Carroll to bring off the bench now. That'd sort it. When we were inevitably going to lose against Italy, and they were just bringing all these technical players off, and everyone's going on about, if you played this player in the hole and do this. I was going, if you just brought Andy Carroll on for 10 minutes and knocked it at him, we might have scored. Been right. Yep. Anyway, what are we doing? Well, are we playing Lavery or Yates? Let's sort that first. Lavery or Yates, because we're not playing both. Which one?
I'm playing Lavery. This is what I'm doing. Sorry, Jerry, you're having a spell on the bench.
Yeah, so I'll agree with Lavery. And
I'm starting with Medine.
Yeah, and then Bowler's going at 9. And as much as I actually don't want to start Medine, as much as Medine is just a work of art of a footballer, as I said to wind Connor up, I don't want to start him, but actually I'm not quite sure who else I would play wide. I think Connor's probably right that if you don't play Medine, you can't play Garber wide left. So therefore, you either have to play Medine or you play Jerry and Lavery, who don't work, and therefore you've got to play him. Because I think John Jules, and I'd stick up for him. I thought he really was trying to do the right thing against Huddersfield, but he just didn't quite deal with the cynical treatment. I think actually he would benefit from a game out of the firing line. So I'm going to go with that team. Connor, you're going to have to come up with a way to not play Medine.
Oh, so no, Medine will either play and get injured, and we avoid this debate for the next 6 months, which would be great for me. Or Medine will play so well, he'll get so happy, he'll go out, he'll pick up a girl and injure his groin again because he's such a top shagger. So either way, we avoid this debate for the next 6 months.
Can you just see my cursor on the screen? You
a
two?
consummate professional.
Just keep your eye on this cursor, right? This is what's going to happen. Diagonal to Viking. Right to Bowler. He's going to leg it down there. Cross comes in. Big man at the far post.
That was like it was like watching Sky, that with all the.
When have you seen Bowler cross the ball to somebody's head?
All right then. Hang on. Let's put Viking over there then. Oh, he's left-footed, don't he? Right, if Bowler inverts, goes over that side, left foot swings it in, Medine. But yeah, he hasn't done that yet. Fair. That's a fair comment. His final ball is lacking. Right, boys, we're on an hour, so I think we're going to leave it there before we have any more arguments. So let's just look forward to Middlesbrough anyway and hope that we don't have another repeat of the Huddersfield game. What's your closing thoughts on the game then? How do you think we're going to get on, Mitch? With a prediction as well.
Yeah, I hate predictions, but I think we'll get a draw, and I think we'll play well. I think that's the main thing I want us to do is play well, turn up, show the character and stuff that we can do, and not be that sort of beige team we were on Tuesday. And I think they'll come out fighting because I think they'll have been hurt by that. So I think we'll get 1-1.
I think Connor, also when we've gone.
I was going to say, I also think that Sean, when he sees this pod, will be apoplectic at the team we've picked and just probably never let me do a preview show again because we've got a 4-4-2 with Medine. Connor.
I'm apoplectic and I helped pick it.
He should have been on. He should have come on then, shouldn't he? Tough TS, Mr. Accredited. Where are you? Where are you? Let's be having you.
After my amazing prediction of a Blackpool win against Fulham, I'm going to try and continue that hot streak. And so I think we're going to have a 2-1 win against Middlesbrough. I back us against any side. Never going to predict that we're going to lose. 2-1 seems like a pretty good scoreline compared, given the relative strengths of the squad. And one thing I will just want to say is to make amends with Nigel, is he said TJJ will come good like Sims did, and I think he's absolutely right.
Yeah,
I think TJJ will grow into be a top-class player over the course of the season.
I think he just needs taking out for a game or so. Like that happened to Sims. He just took out, reflected, just a little bit of time, maybe learned a role a little bit. He just looked a little bit lost. He was doing good things, but I think sometimes you're asking a little bit much of him to replace Keshi, who knows his game inside out, and I think he will come good.
He's just going to be learning so much playing next to one of the best strikers to have ever played the game, Gary Medine.
Well, he'd be better just watching from the bench to fully appreciate it because, he'd probably just stop playing and just in awe at the god that is the goal machine. Love Gaz, love life.
Oh, just imagine if he scores, Mitch, on Saturday.
Oh, it's
Going to be a
it's
sweet
gonna be
moment.
immense. And the whole crowd will probably turn around and point at Connor and say,
Yeah. I think it's going to be 1-1. It's going to be a tough game, as Connor said, with what you're expecting with a nil, what to expect with a nil Warnock side. He's a tough old, wily old dog. And I think, it'll be a tough test. But I'm hoping that we grab a point from the Riverside, or what was it called? The Captain Cook Arena.
Yeah, the Captain John Cook Stadium.
Right, on that note, I think we'll start saying goodbye. As Steve just said, cracking pod, loving the tangerine bants. It's all about the bants, Steve, all about the bants. Okay, so thanks for joining us, everybody, this evening on the stream. Great to have you on board. Thanks, Mitch. We'll probably see you on Sunday for the reaction show, hopefully.
hopefully so. Thanks for having me.
You're not really a reactioner, Connor, are you? You're more of a previewer. But you are welcome to come on if you want, particularly if Gary Medine scores.
Fair enough. I'm not actually going on Saturday. I signed up for a Tough Mudder that I thought was 5K, and then 2 days ago I found out was actually 10 miles. So if I'm alive at the end of Sunday, that'll be a small miracle.
Right. Thanks for watching, everyone. Up the pool.
Up the pool.
Up the pool.